Hey everyone, welcome to Aussie Footy Chats, episode 16, North Melbourne Trade Chats. So today I'm going to talk about the North Melbourne Football Club, the Kangaroos, and as it's been well documented, they've struggled for the last few seasons. They've still finished quite low down the ladder, and they also got a star coach in as Alistair Clarkson. So he's been at the helm for a while. The season wasn't so successful this year. So they went into this trade period still with a lot of young players on their list, so they didn't really want too much change. And they didn't really trade much out. So we're going to start with who they got. So Charlie Spargo, they got through free agency. He's elected to leave the Melbourne Football Club, which I just covered on the previous podcast. Small forward, crummy small forward, pressure player, at your feet, little blonde haired fella. Will be a good addition to help out Curtis in the forward line. Curtis had a breakout year this year, Paul Curtis. He did quite well. He's sort of more of your half forward running, half forward mid-sized sort of player that would run up the ball and do a lot of work up and down the ground. Good pressure and tackling player. He had what you'd call a breakout season. Arguably was one of their best players. So now he has a bit of help. He has someone to come around Larky's feet as well. Larky being their key tool forward. And Jack Darling that they got last year through the trade period. So yeah, that's what they've added to their list. And they've also traded out Finbar Marley, who I explained in the Crows podcast, who's elected to go to the Adelaide Crows and be traded. And yeah, it was a bit of a late surprise. They sort of didn't get a real lot for him. Very late pick. And yeah, sort of better than nothing. But yeah, probably they lose a key forward that they could have developed on that aspect. But they have plenty of key forwards in their list that are quite good that they could develop. I know they tried to have Whitlock as a defender earlier in the year, which is one of their higher draft picks that they traded for to go up in the draft for Whitlock, who went a bit later than what they originally thought. They thought he would have went in the first round of the draft last year. So yeah, the Roos snagged him. Adelaide got his brother. So yeah, his brother was his brother's probably a little bit developed in front of him. Quite similar players. They're obviously twins and tall, very tall players. You know, you're 199 centimeters around that gap, or to 197. So yeah, both the brothers are developing, and yeah, Whitlock at Adelaide sort of kicked a few goals in the back end of his debut season, and probably is a little bit developed in front of his brother. But we'll see what happens this year, and North Melbourne probably could give him some games. Maybe they should have did that with him to develop him in the last back end of the year. But that being said, Clarko doesn't just give games out. He's a pretty stern coach, and you got to earn them. So that's what football coaching is about. You need to earn your spot. So yeah, a bit on that. So we could see him still going to defense as well. But yeah, with Finbar Marley going out of the side, he obviously was in and out of the side as well. Didn't really hold a position in the lineup. So yeah, Nick Larkey will still need some help. That's obviously with Jack Darling. But now yeah, they've got a small forward to add crumbing around their feet. Also, there was some talk about their captain maybe leaving, Jai Simpkin, which Collingwood were talking to him, and they didn't quite have much to offer North Melbourne. I think they wanted at least a first round pick blended in, maybe even two, but maybe asking for a bit too much. But he's still one of their best players, so they needed to entice a deal to get him out, and Collingwood didn't have those picks to do that. So no deal happened, and North Melbourne get to keep him. So he's probably a wanted player there. So there's no surprise there that he's not gone without having a proper deal done. So they keep him. And there's just a bit of talk here. They could have also went for Lika Leah or Stephen May. They also had interest in Jordan Butts as key defender at the Adelaide Crows, but they sort of didn't elect to go for either one of those names. So they sort of probably have a gap in their key tool defence position that they sort of need to fill. But I'll sort of explain a bit about that in a second. And like they've listed a player that may have been in that, but they also have a couple of young guys that can take that role, whether it's Whitlock, Dawson. They've also got Comben as well. He had a bit more of a breakout year this year, but he's more of your centre-half back than what you'd call a fullback. So to play on that key position forward, and so yeah, he can sort of run and carry the ball quite well, Comben. So you want him to be as a centre-half back. And yeah, they obviously got Griffin Lowe, that's maybe your second tall. They've still got some players there, so I mean they're probably happy with that position. So I'm just reading some of the experts' views just there on my notes. They're recommending that's who they could have went for to add on to the list. But essentially they've got some key tools on their list that can be defenders, so that's why they didn't go to do that. And also they try to go for Tyler Young, and also the Suns defender Connor Budrick. So he ultimately chose the Bulldogs to go to. And yeah, they don't have any sort of early draft selection this year, so we'll go into their picks. So yeah, they traded out their early draft pick to Richmond last year, so that was the one I believe they got for Whitlock. So we'll just go into their draft numbers at the moment. So 25, 26, 46, 57, 82 and 100. So yeah, a couple picks in the second round, a couple in the third, and a couple really late ones up to 100. And we'll see who they go for this year. They've got their midfield's not too bad. They obviously got a good ruckman in Cherry. So I feel like he's probably the best ruckman in the AFL outside of Max Gawn and Tom Taccone. And yeah, he'll give a lot of his midfielders a bit of the first look at the ball. They've had a few re-sign. They obviously keep Dry Simpkin. They've got, Wardlord that missed a fair bit of this season with a hamstring. So he'll be back. He'll add into, a bit of grunt, a bit of, hard at it footballer. He's sort of like the way he goes about his footy. So, yeah, they have Dersman's brother on there as well. He was quite a hard draft pick. There was talk maybe of him getting traded out as well, but that didn't eventuate, and they've kept him on the list. Can they develop him? Can he turn out and also we got the other younger brother going through the draft this year, but yeah, Dersmer at North Melbourne would really like him to develop into a good player, and him take a mantle along in the midfield. O'Sullivan as well, high draft pick from last year. Yeah, looked good. They got a lot of games into him this year. He had patches where he looked, good, just quite young still, but he'll have a pre-season and develop his body this year. So yeah, they've got a couple good young players in there. So we'll just quickly talk about the delisted players. I'll just get my list up now with the delisted players. So North Melbourne's delisted players are Miller Bergman, Caelan Dawson, Eddie Ford, Geordie Payne, Will Phillips, Blynn Teakle, Darcy Tucker. So, yeah, Bryn Teakle played at Port Adelaide for a bit, then got delisted, and he was a mid-season pickup, and then he went over to North Melbourne. Miller Bergen, sort of defender slash midfielder, sort of played a few games, sort of was hit and miss. Caelan Dawson, a tall key defender. So they've got two Dawsons there. There's Will Dawson and Caelan Dawson. So they elected to get rid of Caelan Dawson, who played as a key defender, and they've kept the other Dawson that's also a key defender, so they've ran with him, so he could take that sort of position as a key defender. I think Kalen Dawson is the older one, so he's just quickly click into his profile and see how old he is. So he's 27 years old, so he's at his prime. They've elected to move him on. And so, yeah, the other one's a younger Dawson. So, yeah, Darcy Tucker's been around a bit, and Eddie Ford was also around a bit, played a few games. So it's quite interesting. They've elected to let them go. They looked okay, but they've made a change in their team now to essentially trim some of the fat and put a bunch of new players they'll get in the draft this year and play them. Will Phillips was quite a hard draft pick as well. He was in the sort of COVID sort of draft where it was a bit hard for the selectors to sort of know. Yeah, so he's now left, and just a few wasted picks. Also, a bit of time they put into some players with experience that they let go. But as you know, they've struggled for a few years, and Clarko's come in and listed those players with the coaching panel and the board, and they're all elected to do that. And they're going to move forward on with new players in the draft. So that does cover North Melbourne quite well. They didn't do a lot in the trade. They got a free agent player and let one go. They had inquiries from other teams about Jai Simpkin. They tried to inquire about Jordan Butts. Overall, they're going to have to develop a player to cover Jack Darling when he eventually retires in the next year or two, and whether they can get the most out of him through the back end of his career. They don't have the first round pick that they traded out. Will that hurt them or not? I'm not too sure. They're happy to have 2 picks, 20 in the 20s, and go from there. Have they got enough young midfielders? They're going to go for key position players. So they go for a young tall forward to develop, or do they bring in one of those youngs that they got back down there? And they got a small forward to crumb around the feet of Larky to help him out because he gets plenty of ball, and Charlie Spargo will help with that. So I hope you enjoyed that, North Melbourne fans. Quite a short and brief one because that's just what they did in this trade period. Covered it quite fairly. So please like and subscribe. I really hope you enjoyed the content. And also my next one will be Port Adelaide. So that's going to be an interesting one for me personally. It's my team that I follow, but I'll be no different, and I'll be just as fair and just as harsh, or just give my opinion and also just the numbers, crunch the numbers and the statistics, and we'll go from there. So it's going to be quite an interesting one for me personally, but I'll treat it just the same as all the other teams that we know, just as fair as everyone else. So that's how I do things on here. So I hope you enjoyed the show, and thank you very much. Have a good Sunday. Thank you.